Hello my crafty friends, it's Beverly here over at Crafting Chaos with the fourth instalment of the 12 Days of Christmas series for 2019. This time we're going to be making a shaker card and I'll show you the basic parts. We've got the basic matting layer with the hole cut out for the shaker window. We've got a frame for on top. We've got a piece of acetate, a piece that can be cut for the acetate which is bigger for underneath. And then we've got the base panel for the card. We've also got a swirly greeting that's drawn and some drawn snowflakes, small snowflakes to set off the card. Now obviously this option, when you'll see the card at the front of the video of the picture that I did, you'll see that I used some nice Christmas pattern papers, but you can do whatever you wish. So that's what we're aiming for, so we're going to make a start. I'm going to make a slightly different tree I think this time, just to mix it up a bit, and because I'm doing it again. And if I can remember, I'll include both versions of it in the file that's available for download over on my blog. So we're going to start off with a rectangle, and that rectangle needs to be brought on. I usually just bring on a square because it's the first one there, it's easiest to do. And then if we're going to make it the same dimensions of this one, and I envisioned it being around about a 5x7 card or thereabouts, but you can always resize it once you've got your parts made into any size that suits you. This is just making a panel that we could then fit onto a card base. So what I'm going to do is resize it to 5 by, oops, I'm going to take off the aspect ratio and resize it to 5 by 7 initially. It's not liking me, this 7. There we go. There we've got it, 5 by 7. Now all I've done is just got it in the opposite direction. So rather than do it again, I'm just going to rotate it 90 so we've got it at the right angle. So that's going to be our base card. So I'm just going to make that a colour and set it off to the side. So I'm going to select it, select colour and move it off to the side. Now, just to clear up this one, when I go on to my colours and I get this pencil crayon option, obviously I can have the colour wheel, or I can have sliders to have it, different ones that I can have swatches of colours with the codes or whatever, or I can have the spectrum. That one's the one that comes up default on mine, and that's just a Mac thing, it's not a Windows thing and it's not a Canvas thing. So you would only, I think, get this option if you had a Mac, you were working on a MacBook or a Mac computer. So I hope that sort of cleared that up, because I've had a few people querying that. So then we need to make a piece that's going to be the matting layer for this. Now all I did was, instead of making a separate one, I just did an offset and I went in by about 1/4 inch. So we need it to be 0.25 inward, and I'm going to keep it bevel so it keeps a nice round square corner, and say OK. So that's given us a matting layer, and if we turn that to a different colour so you can see it's on top, you'll see that it's got that nice border around. So we'll choose a nice-ish green colour, and that's what we've got. So that's what's going to become this piece here. So what we need to do now is create an aperture for the card and also notch out the edges. So I'm just going to move everything off to the side so we can see what we're working with. And this is a very similar technique to what we used last time, except this time I'm going to use a circle. So I'm going to bring on a circle and just close that down, and I'm going to resize it to about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to click maintain aspect ratio in the edit menu, which is the second button down, and I'm going to choose 0.5, say OK, and that will shrink it down to about 1/2 inch. Now what I'm going to do again now is using the snap to grid function to be able to align the circle where I want it to be, and I'm going to take the grid spacing right down to 0.25, and if I snap that to the grid now, once we've got, I'm going to just zoom in so we can see what we're doing just at the corner there. So now I'm going to go on the select tool, I'm going to click, I was going to click off a second and move and down. So now it's actually square in that. So when you move with your arrow keys now, instead of it moving, it's going to move it so it snaps it to the grid instead. So because we've got the snap to grid function. If you take it off, it allows you to move it in smaller increments. But if you want to line things up, it's far easier to do it if you do use the snap to grid function. So what I'm going to do at this time is I'm just going to go down 1 and 1 across, so it's literally going to notch out that corner there. I'm going to make 3 duplicates like so, and I'm going to position them at the ends of this rectangle. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so we can see the entire rectangle, so you can see what I'm doing at the edges. So if we now just, oh dear, I didn't mean to do that, just snap that back in. I'm just going to move along, and we're going to select the circle and we're going to pop it in over here. And again, we're just going to use our snap to grid function, and this was an even number. Oh, right, yeah. So what we've got happening there is, because it's not an even number, so I'm just going to change the size just initially so that it's a nice even number, because at the minute we've got it. So I'm just going to change it to, if we start off with 5 by 7, so I'll make it 4.75 by, oops, try again, 4.75 by the height, width, no, that should be the height, so let's just change that again. So we want it to be 4.75, 6.75 in height, go away Siri, and 5.75 high, sorry, 4.75 high, which should fit in with our 5 by 7 card. So now we should be able to align it better. I didn't think it was moving quite as it should, because it should move a full block at a time. Now, so we can position that one, and we can position this one, and then we're going to move this one down and position this one also in that corner, and it's just snapping to the grid so that it's fitting within that grid function, if you will. So I'll just zoom back out again now, so you can see now I've got the corners ready to be notched out. Something weird going on here. It's gone to 6.6, so we're going to take that off and make it 6.75, just so that we've got it right now. That'll be perfect. So now, just making sure that everything's lined up as it should be. That's right now. And everything's lined up, so I can select everything and subtract, and that's effectively now punched those out. And we're going to display, zoom to matte. We'll bring in that one piece there, see how it's looking. I'm just going to take that snap to grid off so I can have a look at what it's looking like when I can manoeuvre it a little bit more. Yeah, so that'll be big enough. So I'm just going to make that a brighter colour because it's just a bit dark on this screen. So we're going to make it darker. So there's our red layer, base layer, and this is the one where we're going to make half a tree. So I'm just going to bring on a triangle, and the triangle I'm going to bring on for this one is this triangle. I think I'll bring on a slightly rounded one. And I'm just going to click off, and I'm going to just shrink it down a little bit, take it a little bit that way. Then I'm just going to duplicate it, and I'm going to grow. We're going to put this underneath. I'm just going to shrink it down that way a little bit and inwards a little bit. Just doing it by eye for now, because we can alter this in a minute. I'm making another duplicate, and I think I'm going to do 3 layers so that they're getting increasingly bigger as you go down. I'm going to line them all up on the centre axis by going on the second one, edit, whilst they're all selected, and just selecting this centre here. So that's put them all central. And then I'm going to just move this one down a little bit. So I want just want that one to come out just a little bit more than it is. I'm just finagling here. So I'm just going to line them up again. Happier with that shape, and I'm just going to weld everything together. So this is going to give us, rather than having a straight tree, we're going to have a slightly more shaped tree, just for a bit of a different aspect to it, if you wish, this time. So I'm going to bring on this, not that one, that's the two rounded one, it's this one. We're going to bring on a rounded rectangle and shrink it down. That's too blocky, it must have been the middle one, we'll get there in the end. Shrink it down a little so that when we stick it together with the tree, it's going to have a slightly rounded bottom at the bottom, so it looks like it's in a pot, if you will. I'm just going to drag it out a little bit. Quite happy with that. So I'm going to line everything up again at the centre axes and weld. So I'm happy with the shape that we've got there now. So I'm going to now bring my green piece in, and I'm going to resize it so that it's the right size for my card front. So it's easy to do it a little bit bigger initially and then shrink it down. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger than that, and I think by the time we get the matting layer on that, that's going to look fine. So I'm just going to work with this for a second. What I'm going to do next is create the acetate part, which will go behind this bit, so that when it's punched out to make the shaker element. So we're going to create an offset. We need to go outward. I'm going to keep it at about 0.2 and say OK. So that will be the acetate that we can cut out so that it's going to fit behind. Now what we need to do is I'm going to create an offset, but I want to come in a little bit because I want it to, so that it's not having to be as perfect on. So if my lining up isn't just 100%, it's going to be okay. So I'm going to come in by 0.8 inward and say OK. And then whilst that's selected, I'm going to just go on this piece here, and I'm going to go outward this time by about 0.2 outward and say OK. So now we've got those two, and now the original one that was there underneath we're going to move in a second, because what we want to do is we're going to punch out this smaller one that's on top from the one that we've just created. So I'm going to layer, arrange and send the one that we've just made to the back. I'm going to select the next one, which is the one that we've just made on top, and I'm going to select the one underneath. So I've only got the two of them selected at this stage, so I've still got the one that's the size of the aperture that I want. So if I move these two away now, that's the one that we had originally. So I'm going to select both of these again, and I'm going to subtract, and that's given us a nice border, a frame border if you will, for our card, like so. So that when I punch this one out now of this green piece, this one is going to lay on top as a frame if you will, and if I'm just a little bit out with my gluing, it's going to give me that little bit of wiggle room in case I'm not perfect. Okay, so I'm going to first of all now select this one. I'm going to move that off to the side. I'm going to select the tree and the green backing layer, and I don't want it in the middle, but I do want it to be sort of central across that axis, so it's the same distance top and bottom. And then I'm going to select the tree and the green panel and hit subtract. So that's punched that out now. So now we've got, if we bring this one to the front, we've got our panel with the bit punched out, which is going to create our shaker. This is going to come on as our frame just to make it look a bit neater on the front, and then this piece here will be our what will be acetate. So I'll just do it in grey so you can see, so that when that goes behind, we've got enough room round the edges so that we can glue it without it causing a problem. So what we would do is glue all that bit together, and then all I would do then is just set some double-sided tape on the back of this green panel around where the tree is here, and then just add it to the corners and across and on the sides, of your green panel, and I popped up the whole of the green panel, but making sure I'd gone round this edge as well so that the shaker stayed in the right place. So if we just move that down now onto the red layer, that's how we're looking, so slightly different. So next we're going to work on the greeting. So I'm going to hit the text button over here, the T. I'm going to go off, and it's the top icon we want because we want to change the font. I'm just going to type in Marie. Oops. And then I'm going to type Christmas separately just to make it a bit easier for myself. And I'm going to type Christmas. Oops. Spelling mistake there, Christmas. And now I can change the font, and that's what I'm going to do because I want a nice scripty line font, I think. Although I might change my mind and go for something a bit more modern. I quite like that one for this one. That looks okay, and it's like matches the modern tree, I think. So I'm just going to shrink that down, change it into a drawing line. And oops, I didn't mean to do that. I've got them lined up how I want them on the card. So I'm just going to make sure I group them now so that when I move them, they'll move together. And I'm going to put that sort of here. And then what I wanted was just a little bit of something just to jazz it up. So all I did was bring in, I'll just enlarge these so you can see what they were. So I just brought in some fine line snowflakes, and all I did was download the font IP Snowflake from the font, downloaded it, installed it into my machine, and then just used the letter that was for those. I'm just going to undo so that I can go back to the size they were, redo that, and then I just grouped them so that there was 3 together and one either end, just because I thought it looked a bit funky having that rather than them all in a perfect line. Now obviously these are too small for to cut out, but because I'm going to draw them, so you need to set them as draw. Just checking that I'd set that as a drawing function as well. So what I'm going to do now is move those down on, I need to just bring them to the front, sorry, arrange and bring to the front, and then I'm just going to bring them down onto the card under the Christmas, and it kind of just, I thought, gave that little bit of an extra something. Now I had thought that I might like to add a 4 stitched layer to this, which I thought might just give it that little bit of a nice finished edge, if you will, just to give it a bit more pizzazz. So what you could do if you wanted to do that is very simple. You just go on the second icon down, create an offset. We want to go inward. We want it to be a small inward offset. I'm going to try 0.8 and see what that's looking like. I'm going to leave it bevel because I want it to go around the curve nicely, and say OK. And that looks OK to me. I'm quite happy with the position of that one. So I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to change it into a drawing line because I want to draw that line rather than cut it. And then I'm going to try making it into a drawing the stitch line. And if we zoom in, that's where we're up to. Oh, that underneath there, obviously, if I just click on that, where it's gone round the aperture underneath. So if we just layer and arrange and move it backwards one, that obviously is not going to be seen. We don't want it so far back actually, so I'm just going to send the green one underneath layer. It's difficult to explain because the layers are all in a different, I didn't want it to the back either. Arrange, bring it forward. I did undo, I think that would be the quickest, to go back to there and then just arrange and send it back one layer. Send backward, and we'll send it back again. That one needs to be right at the back. Arrange, send to back. Right, I'm just going to do it through the layers because it's easier. So I'm going to find that 4 stitch layer, so it should be a square. That's that shape. Where is, where's my 4 stitching gone? Does it move completely? just edit under and click back to the 4 stitch layer. So where are we now? That's the layer, it's a group, and we're going to change that into a perforating line and a drawing line, and then we're going to send that group just below that one there, not quite that far down, above that one there, but below the tree. There we are. So it's just obviously I'm just trying to show you on the screen, so you'd have the red layer, and then that would be one piece of card. You cut the green layer out, that's that layer, but I would first of all put your green card in, get it to draw, so it'll draw the Merry Christmas and the snowflakes and the perforated lines, then cut. Then you could cut out your frame for your front of your card for your tree, and then finally don't forget to cut the acetate piece behind. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It's not that difficult to do, and once you've made the file you can knock these shaker cards out quite quickly and make them as like sort of traditional colours or contemporary colours as you wish. You could also substitute this idea of the tree by making a simple snowman by just using some of the basic shapes on board. So remember just to make the aperture rather than anything else. So you'd do it by using your circles and duplicate that. And we could make that one a bit bigger, because obviously snowman's would be a bit bigger, and I could make it a little bit squat but not too much. Maybe squish that one in, and instead of having, in fact you could do a 3-layer snowman if you wanted and do a duplicate again and make this one a bigger layer underneath, a bit more like the snowman in Frozen that was in 3 parts rather than 2. So you could do it a bit like that. Line everything up to the centre, so centre it and then weld, and then you've got a snowman aperture that you could use instead if you wish, or you could use a bell or whatever shape you wanted for your shaker window. But once you've created the file, you've got the scope to do whatever you wish. Now at the moment, let's look at size. I'm going to click on the red layer so we can see. Overall at the minute the card is 5 by 7. So if I select all that and just group it temporarily, we could make it so that it'd fit nicely on a 5 by 7 card front by making it 6.75 by 4.75 here. So that panel now, red panel, would fit nicely on a 5 by 7 card. Then you can mat your green layer and everything else on top. Okay, so that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you for the 5th day of Christmas coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.